Hey everybody, KC here. So there was a really interesting column in the Wall Street Journal the other day that was entitled "College Courses Entrepreneurs Wish They Had Taken." Now some of this might be expected. Like somebody said, "I wish I'd taken a really good course on deal making." Another person said managerial psychology or consumer psychology. That's another one they mentioned. Coding, I totally get that. I have the faintest idea how to code. I'm sure there are a lot of leaders out there who don't either, who would be better off for knowing how to code. But what heartened me, me a little bit, made me feel good, was that one of the courses they talked about wishing they had taken was in creative writing. I love this because it means that what at least some people are saying, boy, if I just knew how to tell a story better, I think I'd be a better entrepreneur. And I totally agree with this. I've always thought one of the courses I would love in retirement someday, like many years from now, one of the courses I would love to teach is a creative writing course for business majors. And the idea is we wouldn't look at business books and we wouldn't look at business proposals. We would look at really interesting novels and interesting magazine stories and books that tell stories really, really well, that use evocative language to be able to communicate effectively with the reader. I've always been able to do this to a certain extent at Portland State when I've taught during the summers, because I make sure that the students are always having to write something every week. And I'm always encouraging them to try to tell a story really, really effectively. One of the guidebooks, if I were teaching such a course in creative writing for business majors, would be a book that Elmore Leonard, the great novelist, one of the great American novelists as far as I'm concerned, wrote a number of years ago. It was sort of an expansion of a piece that he had written for the New York Times about 10 rules for writing, and it was the article had a great headline. It was easy on the adverbs, exclamation points, and especially Hooptedoodle. And it's really good piece. And I would recommend you either find the article online or get the book, because it's a very, very short read, but it's really, really pointed in terms of its attitude. And, some of the lessons were pretty obvious. Avoid prologues, never open a book with weather. Really hates the idea of adverbs. He thinks that if the dialogue is written well, you don't need adverbs. Don't use a lot of exclamation points, and avoid detailed descriptions of characters. But my favorite of his lessons was number 10, which is avoid writing the parts that readers tend to skip. And we've all done this with books, right? You see stuff, you go, I don't need to read that. And one of his points is people never avoid the dialogue, but they will sometimes avoid lots and lots of description. Leave out the parts that readers tend to skip. And I think that's a really good business lesson for retailers as well, right? There's parts of your store and parts of your offering that people are just not going to be interested in. There is lots of product in your stores that maybe people are just going to generally walk by, or so few people are going to buy it, you can make it available to them another way. If you really understand your readers and you understand the story that you are trying to tell about your approach to whatever it is you're trying to sell, you can create a much more interesting and focused store that focuses on what your customers want. A more boring description of this would be SKU rationalization, but I kind of hate that just because it sounds so clinical. I think of it in terms of telling the story that you want your customer to understand and do it in such a way that actually sells stuff. By the way, sort of number 11 on his list of 10 is another one I really like, which is when I reread it, if it sounds too much like writing, I rewrite it. And that it just get out of the way of the story. Don't try and show off. Get out of the way. Tell your story effectively. A really good lesson for retailers as well as a good one for writers. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.